La, da, 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 da. Good morning, my friends. Good morning. Good Monday morning to you, and welcome to another week, a new week. Today is Monday, May 23rd, 2022, and it is good to be together, is it not? It is indeed good to be together. Ooh, excuse me one moment. Okay. So, I'm Brian. I'm Pastor Brian. I'm pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church. They call me PB, and that's why we call this show PB Reads the Bible. And this is episode 9 on our journey through the book of 1 Samuel. I think I forgot to put that. I forgot to change that title. So I'm going to have to do that. It's going to say something other than that. I will fix that somehow. I should have done that. Anyway, this is episode 9 on our journey through the book of 1 Samuel. And we are going to be reading chapter 9 and the first half, first 2/3 maybe, of chapter 10 to finish a story. We're not trying to get through anything extra fast. It's just that they put the chapter break kind of in the wrong spot. It's right in the middle of the story. So we're going to finish the story. We're actually going to do the same thing tomorrow. We're going to be reading like a chapter and a half tomorrow. So we are going to get through 3 chapters in 2 days. Let's not worry about that. Today we're doing chapter 9 and the first part of chapter 10. So go ahead and check in. I see I've got some people watching this morning, joining with me. This is wonderful. I really enjoy being together with you. But go ahead and say something, say good morning, check in, all those kind of things. Good morning, Cheryl. Yes, it is chilly today. That is for sure. I'm wearing pants. I like wearing shorts, but I have to wear full-length pants today. Tomorrow, too, by the look of it, another day might even be colder than today. But then we're back into the 80s by the weekend, so that's good. But rain, too, I guess. I don't know. Mother Nature can't make up her mind. But so go ahead and check in, say those kind of things. And if you don't want to do it on there, you can always send me a text. Same thing for anything you want us to be in prayer about. Put that on the stream. Send me a text, 570-351-1619. And we can be in prayer for and with each other. We can surround each other with prayer. Good morning, Maureen. Good morning. I do pray that you and Paul and Susie are feeling better. Hope you're getting better. Also, prayers for Carter with pneumonia. We pray for that. Good morning, John and Cindy. Good to have you both. And Marilyn, wonderful, wonderful. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody this morning. So announcements. Nothing really to interrupt this week. Wednesdays is going to have to be pre-recorded, but we will have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just like regular. Wednesdays will be at 9. It will go live for you at 9, but I'm going to have to pre-record it tomorrow. I'm going to be helping out at the prayer breakfast downtown. The person who regularly leads that group is going to be unavailable, so I'm going to be filling in for him. I'm his understudy, apparently. Good morning, Colleen. Good morning. Oh, yes, prayers for Bonnie. Bonnie Taylor, dear friend of ours, member from our home church. I mentioned her in worship just a couple weeks ago on Mother's Day when I was talking about mothers of the faith. She fell and broke her ankle yesterday, so prayers for her and for the family as they deal with her pain and all that kind of stuff. All right. So let's get into it, shall we? First, a question. Our question for the week. Our question for the week this week. Am I a slave to dress, friends, work, or habits? I'll repeat that. Am I a slave to dress, friends, work, or habits? And scripture to consider is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 7 through 9. Now, the why did Wesley ask this question? The principle underneath it is simple. Who or what owns us? Who or what owns us? What consumes us? Who or what do we allow to control our life? Quite simply, if we are a slave to something, then that means we are not a slave to God. We are called towards a healthy, balanced life of serving the kingdom virtues we see in the life of Christ. So, am I a slave to dress, friends, work, or habits? All right, my friends, we're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 9 through part of chapter 10. Chapter 10, verse 16 is where we're going to be finishing the story. Good morning, Joe, and good morning, Marcia. Wonderful, wonderful. Got a bunch of us checking in today. That's great. All right. There was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, son of Abel, son of Zeror, son of Bechorath, son of Aphiah, a Benjaminite, a man of wealth. He had a son whose name was Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. He stood head and shoulders above everyone else. Now, the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, had strayed. So Kish said to his son Saul, "Take one of the boys with you. Go and look for the donkeys." He passed through the hill country of Ephraim and passed through the land of Shalisha, but they did not find them. And they passed through the land of Sha'alim, but they were not there. Then he passed through the land of Benjamin, but they did not find them. When they came to the land of Zuph, Saul said to the boy who was with him, "Let us turn back, or my father will stop worrying about the donkeys and worry about us." He said to him, "There is a man of God in this town. He is a man held in honor. Whatever he says always comes true. Let us go there now. Perhaps he will tell us about the journey on which we have set out." Then Saul replied to the boy, "But if we go, what can we bring to the man? For the bread in our sacks is gone, and there is no present to bring to the man of God. What have we?" The boy answered Saul again, "Here, I have with me a quarter shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God to tell us our way." Formerly in Israel, anyone who went to inquire of God would say, "Come, let us go to the Seer," for the one who is now called a prophet was formerly called a seer. Saul said to the boy, "Good, come, let us go." So they went to the town where the man of God was. Pause. I'm going to pause there, even though a little bit more is still connected to this. So chapters 9, 10, and 11 actually have three different descriptions of Saul becoming king. And in this first one, we're going to see that he is chosen by God, that God is the one that's choosing him. But the story is interesting, and it probably came from a couple different traditions, and they got squeezed together and all that stuff. Because it starts off with this odd tale about missing donkeys. And it's going to come back to the odd tale about missing donkeys with something else in the middle. The story of Saul being selected as king in the middle. This first part of the story is very slow in pace. There's a lot of detail. It's not hurried. It's told in a very relaxed way. It's told in a very relaxed way. So we find out about Saul. It doesn't even start with Saul. It actually starts centered on Saul's father, Kish. But Saul is introduced, and we're told a couple things. First, we're told that his family is fairly well off. Father seems to be doing very well, and we're also told that Saul is extremely handsome. No one is more handsome than he in all the land. and he is quite tall. He is head and shoulders above everyone else. All of which tell us, are used to point us to, this kid's going places. This kid is going places. All right, so we're told that. Now he goes on this journey, this little adventure, to try to recover these donkeys that strayed, lost donkeys. And we're told he goes from here to there to the other place. But it doesn't tell us exactly what towns he went to. Did you notice that? The names there are names, but they're generic kind of names for towns. And so we're not told exactly where he went because it's not important. Biblical scholars say that this part of the story, it falls into a category of folklore. It was a tale that was told. All right. Folklore tales often don't have those kind of details, and they're told in this more relaxed way. There's no hurry. There's no hurry. They seem to be just moving along, just going along on their journey. They go to several different places and they can't find the donkeys. They can't find the donkeys. But then they get someplace and we're not told what the name of the town is at all. At all. And Saul's boy, servant, perhaps borderline slave, seems to be the quicker witted, the brighter one. Because Saul says, well, let's go home. We can't find them. Let's go home. Otherwise, my father's going to stop worrying about the donkeys and start worrying about me. Good. That's very rational. Almost give up. But the boy says, there is a man of God in this town. We should go inquire of him and find out. Saul raises the objection. What are we going to give him? He kind of complains, we're out of bread. They only took enough supplies for a couple days, and apparently it's been longer than a couple days. And so they're out of bread, which is going to make the journey home more important to start right away and more difficult should they tarry. But the boy says, well, I got a quarter shekel, half a shekel. A quarter shekel of silver. A shekel is a weight. Yes, anymore shekel becomes used as a currency, the name of a currency, but it was actually a weight of silver at the time. He said, we'll give that to the man of God and to tell us our way. Then the author or the editor inserts something about it and says, come, let us go to see the seer. And that seer is what we now call a prophet. It's interesting that the author puts that in there, or the editor puts it in there, because he has not yet been called a seer. They have referred to this person as a man of God, and not by name. We don't know yet who this man of God is. We just know that it's a man of God. The authors, or the editor says, they went to look for the seer, which was, but like I said, they haven't actually used that description for this man yet. They've called him a man of God. And so Saul agrees. Let's go up to the town where the man of God is, or was. Continuing, verse 11. As they went up the hill to the town, they met some girls coming out to draw water, and said to them, is the seer here? They answered, yes, there he is just ahead of you. Hurry, he has come just now to the town, because the people have a sacrifice today at the shrine. As soon as you enter the town, you will find him before he goes up to the shrine to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, since he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those eat who are invited. Now go up, for you will meet him immediately. So they went up to the town. As they were entering the town, they saw Samuel coming out toward them on his way up to the shrine. Pause. So now we have Samuel. We know who it is. Now they are calling him a seer. They are using this expression, seer. But the editor puts that note in before, that brief aside in before they actually use the term, which is interesting. So as the readers, realizing that it's Samuel, our ears should perk up. We should be ready for something. We know that something, ooh, okay, this is important. Samuel is involved. They didn't know who he was, but we know who Samuel is. And again, this part, especially the first part about this with the girls, the maidens or virgins, some translations might say, come dancing down the street, and that has that folklore aspect to it. Continuing. Now, the day before Saul came, Yahweh had revealed to Samuel, "Tomorrow about this time I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin, and you shall anoint him to be ruler over my people Israel. He shall save my people from the hand of the Philistines, for I have seen the suffering of my people, because their outcry has come to me." Pause. So, God apparently has selected Saul, and he gave Samuel the warning the day before, or the announcement the day before. He said, "This time tomorrow, the guy's going to show up. He's the one." And he says, and he's the one that I've chosen to deliver my people, save my people from the hands of the Philistines, because their outcry has come to me. This changes what was said in chapter 8. Remember, chapter 8, the people came to Samuel and said, "We want a king." And God said, "Let them have a king. They're turning their back on me, not on you." But here, God says, "I am choosing to give them a king, someone to save them." And specifically, he's saying from the Philistines. From the Philistines. So it seems contradictory to chapter 8. But it's probably the author of this section of the story wanting to change the understanding. This might be coming from a pro-monarchical writer, someone who wants to defend the idea of the monarchy, rather than one of the anti-monarchical writer, who does not want to support the monarchy and wants to put the monarchy in a bad light. Oh, I just realized I'm also sending this recording out on Noah's Ark's page, because I forgot to change it from yesterday. My apologies, but folks, you're welcome to join us as we journey here, that's for sure. Okay, continuing, verse 17. When Samuel saw Saul, Yahweh told him, "Here's the man of whom I spoke to you. He it is who shall rule over my people." Pause. What's translated rule is usually translated as lead. It's usually translated as lead. And we're going to understand that a little bit better in a couple minutes, I think, too. But it's usually translated lead. But God is very specific and very blunt with Samuel. Maybe God's getting a little frustrated with Samuel because he was dragging his feet in the last chapter. But here God says, "Here's the man. This is the guy I told you about." So there's no mistaking. You're not going to talk to the wrong one. Continuing. Then Saul approached Samuel inside the gate and said, "Tell me, please, where is the house of the seer?" Samuel answered Saul, "I am the seer. Go up before me to the shrine. For today you shall eat with me. And in the morning I will let you go and will tell you all that is on your mind. As for your donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, give no further thought to them, for they have been found. And on whom is all Israel's desire fixed, if not on you and on your ancestral house." Pause. So Samuel meets Saul. They almost walk into each other, presumably, so the way it's written. Saul asks Samuel, "Who's the seer? Where can I find him?" And he says, "I'm the seer." And then he tells him all these things. Now he says, "In the morning I will tell you all that is on your mind." Saul immediately is probably thinking, "Oh, he's going to tell me where the donkeys are." Because for Saul, that's the only thing on my mind. Samuel immediately answers that. He says, "As for your donkeys, don't worry about them. They're safe." Oh. So what is on Saul's mind? Or what is Samuel going to be putting into Saul's mind? That might be a better understanding for actually what's taking place here, or a better question. Not so much what is on Saul's mind, but what is Samuel going to put on Saul's mind, as God gives him a new mind. Also literally can be translated heart, but we translate it as mind because heart is where at the time they thought the seat of reason was. That's where you did your thinking. So we change it to mind. And Samuel ends it with this thing about very well sounding, very much sounding like Saul and his family are going to be very important. 21, Saul answered, I am only a Benjaminite from the least of the tribes of Israel, and my family is the humblest of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin. Why then have you spoken to me in this way? Pause. Benjamin's was a small tribe, not anywhere near as important as some of the bigger ones, Ephraim and stuff like that. Continuing. Then Samuel took Saul and his servant boy and brought them into the hall and gave them a place at the head of those who had been invited, of whom there were about 30. And Samuel said to the cook, bring the portion I gave you, the one I asked you to put aside. The cook took up the thigh and what went with it and set them before Saul. Samuel said, see what was kept is set before you. Eat, for it is set before you at the appointed time, so that you might eat with the guests. Pause. So Samuel had prepared, and had prepared, I should say, and kept on reserve a particular piece of the animals. The thigh is considered the best part of the animals, because this isn't just a regular dinner, it's a sacrificial dinner, it's a special dinner taking place at the shrine. And the thigh is supposed to be like the best part, the most holy part, whatever, of the animal. And Samuel had it kept on reserve for Saul, and he gives it to him. So here's this guy from a small town in the tribe of Benjamin, brought into, and now he's placed basically at a head table at this dinner with all these other people, and is given the choicest meat to eat. And so he dines along with the servant boy in front of all the other guests. Continuing, so Saul ate with Samuel that day. When they came down from the shrine into the town, a bed was spread for Saul on the roof, and he lay down to sleep. Then at the break of dawn, Samuel called to Saul upon the roof, get up, so that I may send you on your way. Saul got up, and both he and Samuel went out into the street. As they were going down to the outskirts of the town, Samuel said to Saul, tell the boy to go on before us, and when he has passed on, stop here yourself for a while, that I may make known to you the word of God. Pause. So that's the end of chapter 9, but you'll see what I mean, why we're continuing. I'm going to read the first 16 verses of chapter 10, because it truly does finish off this part of the story. So continuing, Samuel took a vial of oil and poured it on his head and kissed him. He said, Yahweh has anointed you ruler over his people Israel. You shall reign over the people of Yahweh, and you will save them from the hand of their enemies all around. Pause. Yeah, it's middle verse, but pause. I want to point out a couple things. First of all, he's anointed you ruler over his people. Again, this word, just like that one which was used in verse 17, it says, you shall rule over my people, and this is ruler over. It's actually leader, is usually translated as leader, but it's a very particular leader. So biblical scholars are confused about it. Many of them think that it means military leader, which does make sense because it does say, save them from the hands of their enemies all around. Which is also interesting because earlier, God is very specific and says Philistines. Here it is a more general and generic, all the enemies, the enemies all around. Maybe Philistines, maybe something else. So it's leader, but it's a specific leader. It's more than just a leader, military leader. Some biblical scholars also think that it means king designate. It's not king because he's not king yet, but he is to become the king. So king designate, so a leader to start with. Okay, continuing. Now this shall be the sign to you that Yahweh has, pause. because it said anointed. I knew that was the important thing. Anointing with oil, this begins that tradition basically, and shows that that is how God, he is God's anointed, which in Hebrew is Meshach, or Messiah, because that's what Messiah literally means, anointed one or chosen one. And so Saul is Meshach. He is an anointed one. He is the chosen one of God to be the king. So he is anointed in that for that specific person. David will also be anointed as a chosen one, a Meshach. Now this shall be the sign to you that Yahweh has anointed you ruler or leader over his heritage. When you depart from me today, you will meet two men by Rachel's tomb in the territory of Benjamin at Zelzah. They will say to you, the donkeys that you went to seek are found, and now your father has stopped worrying about them and is worrying about you, saying, what shall I do about my son? And you shall go on from there further and come to the oak of Tabor. 3 men going up to God at Bethel will meet you there, one carrying 3 kids, another carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a skin of wine. They will greet you and give you 2 loaves of bread, which you shall accept from them. After that, you shall come to Gibeath Elohim, at the place where the Philistine garrison is. There, as you come to the town, you will meet a band of prophets coming down from the shrine, with harp, tambourine, flute, and lyre playing in front of them. They will be in a prophetic frenzy. Then the Spirit of Yahweh will possess you, and you will be in a prophetic frenzy along with them, and be turned into a different person. Now, when these signs meet you, do whatever you see fit to do, for God is with you. And you shall go down to Gilgal ahead of me. Then I will come down to you to present burnt offerings and offer sacrifices of well-being. 7 days you shall wait until I come to you and show you what you shall do. Pause. So Samuel tells Saul, watch for these 3 things. 3 things are going to happen. First, you're going to meet somebody who's going to tell you about the donkeys that they've been found and your father's worrying about you. So the second is you're going to meet 3 people. One's carrying 3 kids. One's carrying 3, meaning kids as in goat kids, not kids, children. One is carrying 3 loaves of bread. One is carrying a skin of wine. And they're going to offer you 2 loaves of bread. Take them. And then the third thing that's going to happen is you're going to meet a bunch of prophets in a prophetic frenzy, a bunch of men in a prophetic frenzy, and you're going to be joining them because the Lord is going to put his spirit within you. All right. As he turned away to leave Samuel, God gave him another heart. And all these signs were fulfilled that day. When they were going from there to Gibeah, a band of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God possessed him, and he fell into prophetic frenzy along with them. When all who knew him before saw how he prophesied with the prophets, the people said to one another, what has come over the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? A man of the place answered, and who is their father? Therefore it became a proverb. Is Saul also among the prophets? When his prophetic frenzy had ended, he went home. Pause. One more thing about those 3 things that Samuel was going to say was going to happen. What was the purpose for them? The first one was to offer confirmation to Saul of that the donkeys had been found, and to let him know that Samuel is the real deal. Okay, when this one happens, you're gonna realize that this is all happening just as Samuel told you it was going to. The second one, again, to prove that what Samuel said was right, but also why the 2 loaves of bread? Quite possibly, if not probably, because that was Saul's complaint. Earlier in the chapter, when he said, what are we going to give to the seer? Because we don't have any bread left. Our bread is run out. Well, now he's going to have 2 full loaves, so he should be okay for a little while. But lastly, the third one, what's the importance of this being gathered in with these group of prophets? Well, it is because of that opportunity of receiving God's Spirit, the Spirit of God coming upon him and empowering him and making him a different person, making him a different person. And who is their father? Someone asked. That's a good question, right? That's a good question. It seems to be saying Kish, isn't really his father anymore, but Yahweh God is the father of all prophets. Is might be what this person is getting to. I find that interesting. When his prophetic frenzy had ended, he went home. So continuing and finishing up, Saul's uncle said to him and to the boy, "Where did you go?" And he replied, "To seek the donkeys. And when we saw they were not to be found, we went to Samuel." Saul's uncle said, "Tell me what Samuel said to you." Saul said to his uncle, "He told us that the donkeys had been found. But about the matter of the kingship of which Samuel had spoken, he did not tell him anything." End of chapter, or end of that passage, that reading for today. And chapter 10, verse 16. So Saul seems convinced, certainly seems convinced, but he's not brave enough to tell his uncle the whole truth about the things that Samuel said to him. He only tells him part of it, just the piece he thinks he needs to know. You're on a need to know basis, uncle, and I'm not going to tell you everything that happened. So God has given him his Spirit, the Spirit of God. And if you remember, if you walked through Judges with me, if you journeyed through Judges with me, we talked about that a few times, and there can be different reactions to the Spirit of God. And his reaction was to go into this prophetic frenzy. It perhaps also the Spirit of God should empower him and strengthen him to be braver, but that doesn't seem to be the case, at least not yet. Well, my friends, that's going to be it for today. Thank you for joining me. I do pray that this has been beneficial to you in some way, that God has spoken to you in some way through what we've read and said together. As you go about your days, not just today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to everything God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, "Thank you, Papa," and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed. Bye.